city of Davis, California is currently undergoing a community engagement process to create a shared vision for a revitalized, vibrant downtown Davis. An important question to ask in this process is, what makes Davis, Davis? It has something to do with funny little red buses and in-your-face politics, sometimes right on those buses. It certainly has a lot to do with bicycles and bicycle lanes. There's only over 100 miles of dedicated bike lanes in just under 10 square miles of Davis. It's about parks in every neighborhood. And of course, it's about a world-class university nestled in a small town feel. Most importantly, though, Davis is about the people who occupy those spaces, their families, their friends, their neighborhoods, their neighbors. People on bicycles moving in every direction. A downtown filled with people looking for public spaces to be in. Family-owned restaurants, entertainment, shops. It's certainly about the iconic farmers market and the people who gather there locally and from the region and beyond. Davis has a unique opportunity to redefine its downtown area. It's a physical space that, let's face it, it's getting old. A lot of the retail shops now are closing. So the question is, what could Davis look like in 20 years? And what could the next 20 years bring for Davis? So the city is contracted with consultants to engage the community and develop a downtown-specific plan. And the goal of that plan is to create a vision for Davis that is forward-thinking, bold, and exceptional. And there are 6 guiding principles for that. It's to establish a vibrant, clearly defined heart of downtown, create an extraordinary public realm, create a strong brand for downtown Davis, to balance historical preservation objectives with the larger vision, utilize innovative parking and transportation solutions, and craft a program for a vibrant and resilient downtown. Now, in my view, there's one obvious thing the city can do to meet these objectives in the very short term. Here's a map of downtown Davis. Blue is parking, green is public space. So the streets are clearly focused on parking over people, and the public spaces really are few and far between. The city has just created new parking spaces just outside of downtown for employees, and there's more parking planned or potential if necessary. So where could Davis create an extraordinary new public realm that establishes clearly defined the heart of downtown, that balances the old with the new, and anchors a vibrant and resilient downtown? Where could that be? Well, the obvious choice is East Street Plaza. The Plaza is right in the heart of downtown. There are many examples of plazas and squares like ours that could serve as models for taking this plaza and making it a much more vibrant space. So this is the current plaza, really poor seating arrangement, and quite small, and just an open kind of space there. Here's another view. Mainly this place is it's a city-owned lot taken over mainly by parking. So, if we take this small plaza and turn it into a large public square, what could that opportunity bring for Davis? So there are many examples of squares around this size, of cities around this size. So here's Town Square in Rockville, Maryland. Rockville has almost the identical population of Davis, about 70,000 people. This square and plaza is really nice. It has seating for restaurants in the perimeter, a large public space, seating for that faces each other in many cases. Here's another example of seating facing other seating. This is at the end of the square. And here's some more seating that they've brought in. Again, surrounded by restaurants. There's some activities for kids, a water fountain, some play structure there, some other structures that can be brought in temporarily. And it really blends in a mix of the restaurants and the retail and the public space all seamlessly together. So this large public space is a flexible space that can be used for events, and the people in Rockville get pretty creative about the way they use that space. The important thing is it can be really flexible for multiple uses, and that can really be the heart of downtown. There are many examples throughout the world. No city in Europe is complete without a really beautiful public square. And, there are just endless examples in Europe. Here's a plaza in Frankfurt, Germany. We can look to Latin America, where colonial Latin America, each town was built basically around a plaza, and those to this day serve as central places for the community to gather. We can look to modern shopping malls in Hong Kong or anywhere in the world. Exotic places like Chico, for example, have nice plazas. This plaza in downtown Chico's got a really nice kind of amphitheater stage area, water structure, and a building for public events. Boulder has this wonderful Pearl Street, again with seating, restaurants, public spaces, green spaces. This is the type of development that could really benefit Davis. So we have this space. All we need is to put our efforts to designing a space and to put the resources together to build that space. Now, the Davis downtown plan has put very little into planning that space. But let's provide them a little bit more information to help them design a better space for this. So it's surrounded by restaurants. Something important to recognize that a plaza could support these restaurants by putting restaurant seating around the perimeter. It would also encourage more restaurants to eventually join that space. There could be an elevated stage, which I think is important for public events. It could also be a small building, and then outside that building could be the stage. But the stage needs to be located either in the south or the west parts of the plaza in order to provide shade to the stage. And there are many other ways that we could provide shade structures throughout the plaza, and of course including trees. Now, on the other side of E Street, the plaza could be kind of extended to a path in front of existing restaurants on the other side of the street. And that would be, of course, totally optional at some point in the future if the city decided to redevelop that side of the street. It's important to recognize that there's also pathways that go back to the D Street restaurants and services, Cloud Forest Cafe, the Mustard Seed, the Pence Galleries back there. Now here's a view of that, looking to that direction. Is really not an attractive walkway. There's garbage bins down that alley there. And so one option that the city could choose in the future would be to purchase this small one-story building currently occupied by Bizarro World, which is a wonderful, beloved store in Davis, but at some point they may choose to relocate, or the owner may choose to sell. That, again, is just completely optional. But if we did that, that would open up that space for another plaza. So on the other side of the plaza, there is this PDQ is an office. I mean, you could postal and notary public there. Fingerprinting is also there. But that one-story building could also be purchased by the city, and that space could be turned into a nice plaza on the other side as well. An advantage to working on that side of the plaza is it could open up into Spencer Alley, which could be redesigned as a walking street with many courtyards, etc. We could also essentially, I'll call this tunneling through the buildings on G Street, really just creating a hallway, a walkway to the G Street businesses, and those walkways could also be improved. We could also think about connecting the train station with this emerging green corridor. And ultimately, a green corridor could be developed, a walking path, safe walking path filled with restaurants and places for people to gather, public spaces that connects the train station all the way to Central Park. So this plan is really built around the existing businesses in Davis to create much more vibrant public spaces, and that could ultimately attract more people to the downtown area and just make it a nicer place to be and to be proud of. Eventually, we could put larger buildings in the downtown area consistent with the plan for Davis. And those would be dependent on the building owners, whether they want to develop or not, but the city could change its codes to allow that to happen. So this is what I've proposed. I proposed something similar to this in the very first day of a public workshop the city had a couple months ago. And unfortunately, they came up with a completely different plan that is really opposed to the East Street Plaza plan. Their plan would be to essentially put buildings on the existing East Street Plaza, completely redevelop that space, put buildings on the other side of 3rd Street, and create some sort of plaza in the 3rd Street space between E and F Street. I'd like to walk through this proposal. They've put a lot of effort into it. They call it their Plan A. So there's a kind of step-by-step process. The first step would be to put some buildings on existing East Street Plaza. Presumably, the city would have to sell that property to a developer, put a small plaza in, but eventually that plaza would also get eaten up by more buildings. And ever more buildings, presumably again selling to developers, but a small courtyard there, and again at East Street, some sort of an East Street, a 3rd Street plaza. Let's look at that, their design. They've put a lot of effort into this design. To the right, we see that the East Street Plaza space has been essentially replaced by buildings, and 3rd Street becomes a space partly for cars and partly for some sort of plaza. Complete redevelopment of downtown. Here's the way they'd incrementally do this. On the left, you see existing plaza there. They start putting buildings on the plaza, East Street Plaza. On the right, they start putting more buildings on the plaza. They continue, this is just kind of conceptual, but they would continue to put buildings until eventually there could be some 3rd Street court plaza or square. So here's another vision of that, another view. They put a lot of effort into this. Here's yet another one. And again, this is their drawing of it. I've looked really hard to try to find some strengths and some opportunities here, some benefits of this proposal, but I really cannot find any. I find only weaknesses and threats to this proposal. First of all, this is my top 10. The very first thing it does is incrementally destroy the existing heart of Davis. That is the East Street Plaza and the East Street Plaza area. It essentially sells the city-owned public space to private developers. It's extremely impractical. There are 8 business owners, building owners who would need to presumably sell their buildings to other developers or agree to this big plan. It's expensive, and this is really critical. Every time the city sells one of the buildings downtown, it gets reassessed, and the rents go up in those buildings. This is one of the major reasons there are a number of vacant spaces in downtown. It partially blocks off a major street. The square is surrounded by cars. It's not really located in the center of Davis. There's no large open public space. It ignores the existing buildings. It's just not culturally appropriate for Davis. What the consultants have mentioned for East Street Plaza is, that plaza is already large. They told me East Street Plaza is already big. What we could do, one of their ideas is to put a play structure in that plaza, which essentially takes away the public space. And they have this idea they could bring in food carts. Of course, if you're going to do this, it's going to be anything like the food carts in Woodland or in Sacramento. If you want to create a food cart event, this should be a long-term, year after year event. You're essentially taking that East Street Plaza and keeping it small by doing this. This is the only attempt they made to create a large plaza. Drawing for the plaza, this is their backup plan, quote, or their plan B. They really put no effort into doing this other than putting a building in that space. Nobody knows exactly what that public space building would be for. In fact, Davis does not have a good history of building public buildings that are widely used. We can think of in the Central Park, the Teen Center, which many people don't even know existed there. Now it's the Davis Bicycle Museum. The City of Hall downtown sat vacant for years, maybe decades, before it was ultimately bought by or sold to Bistro 33. So we're not great at building those buildings. We'd have to really think that through carefully. Nonetheless, here's the strengths of creating an open plaza. That is, it could be relatively easy and quick to build. This is city-owned property. It's low cost. It could be a large space for public events. It enhances the existing businesses there. It attracts new businesses for a vibrant downtown center. It requires no buildings to be changed. It scales up incrementally to this green corridor idea if we wanted it to. Individual building owners could decide if they want to increase the building size. And really, it would enhance existing Davis's small town feel. What are the threats? And again, the consultants mentioned that, that space is already large. And, if you had a large space, what would you do with it? And really, if we look at other cities of similar size or even smaller, Chico, Healdsburg, Arcata, many cities have large plazas there are many examples all over Europe, all over the world. That is not a large space for a city of our town. So I don't believe that is a weakness. They mentioned that the space, it must be filled with things. You can't just have an open plaza. You've got to do things with it. Well, that's actually not consistent with many of the plazas and squares around the world. Creating open, flexible space is really important. However, there are many things that we could do with that space, including restaurant seating and seating for benches, amphitheater types play structures for kids, and other amenities. So I don't believe that one is a problem. It removes parking, that's true, but Davis is building new parking, and that would be the case with their plan anyway. Really it comes down to lost tax revenues and less money perhaps from developers, but we need to think long-term here that if we can create a vibrant public space, it's going to bring in new activity and new businesses and revitalize downtown. So I don't see the weaknesses of creating a downtown plaza. We want a vision that is forward-thinking, bold, and exceptional. At least that's what the consultants would like us to believe. Bold is not a virtue in and of itself. Boldly doing the wrong thing can get you into a lot of trouble really quickly. Exceptionalism, too, is not a Davis virtue. In fact, in recent, exceptionalism is really antithetical to our values in Davis. Davis is known for being thoughtful, meaningful, and forward-thinking in our planning. And we seek to evaluate and discover the best available strategies to achieve our goals. We learn from successes and the failures of others, and we carefully do the right thing in Davis. That is what's needed now. Instead of bold, we need to be enlightened. And instead of exceptional, we need to create a plan that is feasible for the residents of Davis. So this video is made in preparation for a public workshop That workshop starts tomorrow. Please let me know if you have comments on this. I will put my name in the video where this is posted, and let's see how the city responds.